everyone. Happy Monday morning. It's Charity Smith, Ms. Mogul. This is our special edition of Mogul Today. Today, I have a special segment that we're going to entitle Mogul Money Monday. And I couldn't think of anybody better to have in this conversation than today's guest. Now, before we get into the interview, I want to make sure you all know exactly what to do. Make sure you have your laptop and your lattes ready. We're going to finance school today with our guests. Make sure you also go to youcancreateyourown.economy.com, subscribe to the website on our mailing list. That's where that's where we'll get all of the updates on our guests, what they're providing for our listeners, RSVPs, website. All of that stuff is there. So make sure you become a part of the community. Secondly, go to our fan page, Master Your Morning with Miss Mogul. Make sure you connect with the community there. Lots of conversations happening there. And you can also upload some of your questions and comments about the show there. Now, without further ado, I want to bring in today's guest because I promise you we're going to go probably right up to the wire or beyond because he really is a walking treasure trove of information. Today's guest is the one and the only Mr. Paul Schumann. Now, let me tell you a little bit about him and his experience. Paul's background includes 46 years, 4 decades plus 6 years of experience in real estate and mortgage brokering for individuals, as well as builders and developers. Completely our audience here. As a professional negotiator, he has helped companies in distressed areas settle creditor accounts, provide win-wins for both sides. He's also settled debts for small companies as well as multi-million-dollar debts for large corporations. He finds solutions for even the most difficult situations. I told you all we need to talk to him today. Paul Schumann is an instructor for the International Accelerated School of Business, and we will provide more of his bio in our posts and also on the website. But without further ado, I wanted to make sure we welcome now to the virtual studio, Mr. Paul Schumann. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much, Shirley. It's a pleasure being here. Your reputation supersedes you. You're just an amazing, amazing lady. And just ask away. I love helping people. And I've done this for so many years. It's almost I could do it in my sleep. But I'll tell you, what's really important is knowing the audience, because real estate is such a diverse product. I mean, you can go from low-end housing all the way up to high-rise office buildings, skyscrapers, shopping malls. They are all in a completely different genre and a completely different state in this economy.
So before we jump into that, I want to kind of tie in today's conversations with current events. So many of the people who are listening to us are not just in the U.S., but are literally around the world. But we really want to talk to the U.S. population now.
Yes.
We just had the COVID bill, the relief package that is passed. And so now people are chattering about their PPE and the stimulus checks, etc. There have been, and I don't have to tell you this, you know this, small businesses have tanked in the last cycle, right? After experience a lot of highs, right? We were in a booming market before COVID happened. The market was booming and surging, etc. Then COVID happened. And then, as they say, the rest is literally history. Now that we're on this side, we're trying to navigate our way through all of this and get back to a functioning, healthy economy. Looking at the real estate market specifically, let's talk about landlords now who were not able to collect rents, right? So the moratorium has hit some of the smaller landlords or some of the smaller companies particularly hard. What's the state of that now, as you see it? What's the current state of affairs? And then how does the PPE and stimulus impact that, if at all?
Boy, that's a big loaded question. With the stimulus coming in the real estate market, the real estate market itself, it depends upon what part of the country you're in. And it, like if you're in Missouri or Michigan, some of the other states, it's hit really, really hard. Here in Southern California, real estate's been skyrocketing, going up, as well as Seattle, Washington, back in New York. Numbers are going up. The rest of the country, it's going down. So giving you information, please be aware, it may not be specific to your exact geographical spot, but I'm going to try and give you an idea of what's going on. Right now, real estate has been artificially held in place and going up because of 2% interest. Never before have we seen, except maybe back in the 1940s or 50s, have you seen 2% interest on real estate. Mm-hmm. I remember when I was way back when in 1978, 79, I was dealing with interest rates at 18%.
And when we talk to people about that now, Paul, they think we're lying. Now, I wasn't in the market then, but I've talked to some of my mentors. Nothing to have 18, 20, 22% interest rates on real estate. Nothing. And so when the interest rates went down to 2%, people were kind of gasping. When you're accustomed to an 18% interest rate versus a 2%, could you explain a little bit why that happened?
Yes, as best as I can. There's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes that we don't know about, and the Federal Reserve is playing games. The U.S. government Treasury plays games. The stock market plays games. We don't really know their end goal, but we can see some of the things. But what had happened was, same way back when Roosevelt had the problem, they realized that if you lower an interest rate, what it does is it makes things more affordable. Because right now, and I'll only talk for a minute on interest rates, one of the most destructive things we have in the United States is an interest rate. Your typical credit card is anywhere from 16 to 25% interest. Mm-hmm. So when you're buying a couch for $1,000, when you pay it off, you've really paid like $1,400 for it, that's right, over long term. And that's why I say, Einstein says, compound interest is an amazing product. If you understand it, you can benefit from it. But if you don't, it could cost you a lot of money. Absolutely. Real estate, very similar to that. Right now, interest rates were forced down by the feds, mainly because people couldn't afford real estate. If the real estate industry started to crumble, if we kept interest rates up high and houses didn't move, we would have seen another 2008. We would have seen the real estate market crash. And when the real estate market crashes, discretionary money goes away. And when discretionary money goes away, the stock market crashes. It's all hinged together. It's not like, this real estate industry is totally separate from the stock market. No, they're all tied together. The finance market, the real estate market, the Wall Street, they're virtually inseparable. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You see the real estate market taking a drop. And what I explained again is discretionary income. When somebody has $200,000 worth of equity in their house, they can pull an equity line of credit. They can go out, go on vacation. They can refix their house up. They can spend money, which keeps the economy going. Mm-hmm. They can also invest in the stock market for their future. But when discretionary money goes away, the equity drops down. Same way with businesses. If they don't have a lot of extra customers, discretionary money changes. That's what fuels the marketplace. That's what changes everything going on out there. It's discretionary money.
So let's talk a little bit about that and why. Well, first of all, let's back up. And if you're taking notes out there, and I hope you are, first of all, you should understand that real estate is time sensitive, right?
Yes.
And so timing has everything to do with how the market operates, how the interest rates operate, and how it's tied to, as you said, the Wall Street, the finance market. And mm-hmm. they really are built upon the well-being of real estate, right? The market is really built upon that homeowner, in my opinion. Let me speak from my perspective. The market is built upon that person who can buy the home, not only have the home, but understands equity in the home and can take the equity out for their discretionary income to do all of this other stuff. It's built upon the economic well-being of the average person. Can we agree on that?
Yes. Essentially, real estate, And the unfortunate problem is we've had past administrations that like to fund the rich, but the entire economy runs from the bottom.
That's right.
And, we're starting to see an administration that realizes if we can fuel the bottom part, the people who are the poorest in the country, the rich will get rich because they're going to be buying all their supplies and services. If you can get the people who are barely making it enough money, they'll spend more money on Amazon. They'll spend more money at their
That's right.
local grocery store. They'll spend more money getting better clothes, fixing up their cars, and doing things, which moves the economy. The rich don't move the economy. You give them another $1 billion, they just throw it in a bank account. They don't care. You give the poor $1 billion, and all that, the entire billion goes into gross domestic product. It stirs the movement of the economy, and that's where we need it. Same way in real estate. And I was explaining to Shardy earlier, real estate runs from the bottom up, not from the top down.
That was going to be my next question. Explain that, because you gave a really good scenario, which is going to lead us into the debt conversation about how real estate works. When what we call the bottom, the people who are in the lower economic strata, if you will, of our society, when there are opportunities economically there is this funnel that can come up, and it kind of pushes everybody else up. So when someone sells their $80,000 house now, because now they can afford a $150,000 house, then the person who had the $150,000 house can now look at the $350,000 house.
Right.
And then that person that owns the $500,000 house is in a better market now to sell, because the person that was in the $350,000 house is now looking at the $500,000. So all of it is just kind of stacked up on each other. Explain just a little bit now why it's important that we manage debt. So that's a good segue into that. So with this has come a huge debt burden to those who are in the lower income sectors. Hospitality is hit hard. Restaurants were hit hard. Nurses, people in the medical field, believe it or not, were hit hard economically. And let me just go out here and champion the cause of landlords, right? Being one. Landlords took a huge hit with the moratorium. And if we didn't have already some system in play to remain liquid and understand how to leverage our assets during that time, we got hit in the gut. So why is it important now that we start to look at debt, now that the PPE is coming in and now that stimulus is coming in? Why is it important that we now start to look at debt and now start to mitigate that and address the debt issue?
One of the biggest things, and again, primarily because I spent 20 some odd years also being a mortgage broker, looking at a lot of tax returns, looking at income, and then we look at today's credit. Now, granted, what's amazing is during this pandemic, a lot of households paid down their credit card debts, paid down a lot of their debts. But their biggest issue out there still now is the student loans. They're sitting on like about $1.4 trillion. But what's interesting is out of that $1.4 trillion, about 500 or more billion dollars is just inflated interest. It's never what the money was borrowed. And that's why one of the things that Biden had put out there, he said, in order to get the student loans handled, the first thing we're going to do is get rid of that stupid interest that they were charged.
Yes.
That's not real money. That's just inflationary money. That's just money that they're getting. You wipe out interest, and all of a sudden your student loan debt will be down to like $750 billion, $800 billion, which is manageable. Now, if you can knock off the lower end of the debt, and I don't know exactly how the numbers work out in student loans, but anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000, and you're going to knock out a big portion of the problem debt.
Right.
Because those people came in just to get a simple degree to go out and work minimum wage jobs.
Yes.
They can't afford to pay those debts back.
Wow. And so let's talk about that a little bit more then, Paul, because I know that there were some and we're kind of politics has its place in finance without us going too deep into that.
Right.
Some of the progressives wanted to look at a $50,000 cut with some of these student loan folks. And
Yeah.
the current administration was saying no about $10,000. Whatever it is, how does the impact of removing that now impact? What's the relationship with removing that debt and now the possibility of home ownership and investing and financial health coming back to American homes look like? You understand the question? What's the relationship there with removing that debt and financial health coming to the borrower?
There, there's two parts to that story, and I'm going to try and address it as best as I can. Removing the lower end of the student loan debt is probably the most important thing we can do, because those are the people that are working the lower end jobs out there.
Mhm.
Yeah, maybe they got a bachelor's degree in something, but they don't have a job position. There's so many unemployed because the job market has changed. What we're seeing is with artificial intelligence, robotics and stuff, the people that have been working on the assembly lines are gone. There's machines doing it.
Right.
Robots, electronically done.
Right.
Amazon, if you look at it, you hardly see people in there. You see machines moving everything around, loading trucks, doing stuff. So a lot of those degrees that the lower end had, they're not paying off for them. So getting rid of that debt is going to make a huge difference in their credit reports, which is very, very important.
Yep.
Getting a good credit score. Now, we'll talk about that later.
Yes.
But primarily, if they don't have to make payments on a student loan, that's an enormous change to their cash flow. And cash flow is the make or break of either a business, real estate, or anything. If you're a landlord and the tenants don't pay, you're going to be in serious trouble. If you're a small business owner and the customers don't come in, you can't pay your employees, you can't pay for the food in the restaurants, you can't pay for anything. Cash flow is the key. So removing that low end of the student loans literally is like taking a gigantic burden off of 1 million people's backs who gone, oh my God, my credit's going to get better. I got out from under this debt. Now I can look at living my life a little bit easier. Not so scary. And two, I can now look at home ownership, because one of the things we look at, unfortunately, as a mortgage lender, is we look at the student debt problem.
It's true.
If it's way behind and problematic, you're not going to you may get turned down for a loan.
You will.
Or you may get a really bad loan, considered like a poor debt. And that's where credit scores and knowing how to set yourself up to get the right mortgage is critically important. But again, the student loan problem is very, very important. 50,000, I don't know. Again, I don't know what the numbers look like. So I can't say I'm an expert. Oh yeah, that 50,000 is the right number or 10,000 is the right number. But I do know that I have worked with people in student loans and I have friends that owe money. I looked at one gal's number and she owed like $26,000 on her student loan. I asked her, I says, how much did you actually borrow to go to school? She goes, about 11,000. I go, wait a minute. You borrowed 11,000, but you owe 26,500. She goes, yeah. Same way with a friend of mine who borrowed $2,500. His bill is 11,000 now, all because of these add-ons of collection costs and interest rates and penalties and late charges and fees. I mean, when you look in the industry and credit cards and stuff, they want you to be late on your credit card.
Yes.
Why?
Yes.
$39, $39, $39, late, day after day after day. They keep hitting you with problems. You know, banks, if you overdraw an account, it's like $35 for each check, up to maybe $100 a day.
Yes.
You know,
yes.
And that they love it. They make billions of dollars off of you making mistakes. And so they let you make mistakes.
They let you because it's profitable. And here's what we need to understand about debt. There's always a win-lose scenario built into debt. Somebody's
Yes.
going to win, somebody's going to lose. If you're on
Yeah.
the what I call the ignorant end, if you don't understand the terms. And we're not talking about what's good debt, and we'll talk about good debt versus bad debt. But for
Yeah.
the most part in this conversation, it's not understanding the impact of that loan. Now, this isn't necessarily a real estate comment, but it's, in my opinion, an overall business comment. So many of the degrees now are becoming obsolete. And it's
Yes.
funny you bring that up. I looked
Hmm.
at the Department of Labor. STEM is where it is right now. And for the next 15 years, by the way, it's going to be STEM areas and healthcare. And bioscience, bioengineering, etc., so forth. But it's going to be somewhere in the STEM areas. So many of our students now who are going to college and studying obsolete degrees. I mean, I appreciate Aristotle, but he has no impact right now on the economy. It
No,
just isn't relevant.
that's
And
right.
so, if we, in my opinion, my humble, and I have a couple of degrees, but almost as many as a thermometer. But my point is this: I'm still paying off student loan debt for the bragging rights of saying I have the degrees, but what I'm doing now is not relevant to the degree. So it's a better use of money, in my opinion. So for y'all who are taking notes, if you need to now refresh a skill set that is relevant to actually making money, getting cash flow, that's a great use now of the stimulus. And we know that PPE is probably just going to go to payroll and rescuing the businesses, but now start to reinvest in knowledge that's actually going to make you money.
Yeah.
It's not a sociology degree right now, ladies and gentlemen. I love God too, but it's not a theology degree. It's going to be something that actually makes money. Understanding uh, the mortgage industry, understanding strategies in real estate. And we know that real estate is a long term investment, but it's an investment with several points of leverage nonetheless. So that's my soapbox on that. If you're thinking about college, think about it from a think about it from if it's going to actually be relevant in the next few years or not. If you're planning to enter the job market, if you're wanting to create your own economy, however, I think your time would be better spent in a finance class, business management, economics, for God's sake, or spend time with someone like Paul, who's been in the industry for 46 years, who can give you insight that probably is not in a textbook anywhere, that will save you heartache. Tell us about some of the people you've had to bail out of debt. Some of the worst case scenarios that you,
Oh
how is
my
that supposed to
gosh.
click forward? And I'm sure you have some stories
Oh, I have a
that are not
few.
that old, right?
Yeah.
But tell
Yeah,
us about that.
I'll tell you, one of my last clients was, he owed $178,000 in credit card debt. Now, that seems like a lot of money, but to them it really wasn't. She was making really good high six-figure incomes. She was a multinational company. She was doing things. It was all in network marketing. And then she got into the fight with the owner of the company, and they stripped her of all of her income, took all of her network marketing away and said, "You're fired," and took it. So she went from six figures to zero. And all of their savings they had to do to maintain their properties and what they were doing and their life, unfortunately got wound down. It all went through collections. It got charged off, and it was in the hands of collection attorneys. And he calls me up and says, "Paul, I've known you for 20 years. I know you're good at this, but we're in a real deep trouble. Can you handle this?" And he hands me, sends me over the documents, and I'm going, okay, let me see. I pick up the phone.
That bad, huh?
Well, when it's already gone past charge off and you're already in the hands of collection attorneys, it's a different game. If you're not a professional in doing this, you're going to get killed. And I got stories of two people that got killed, one just from last night. They didn't bother to call me. But here's the deal. When he gave me the information, I called the attorneys up. But first what I did was, now here is the key to understanding if you're going to negotiate something, there's something called hardship plan and hardship letters. And right now, if you're having problems with just credit cards, Call up your credit card company. Every one of them has a hardship plan. They know the pandemic, and the chances are they're going to drop your interest rate and drop your monthly payment so it's affordable. Typically, it's down to 1% of what you owe. So $1,000, your payment's $10. Okay, they can drop the interest rate down to 10, 11% instead of the 16 to 20% where you're at. Again, it's for a short period of time, but it may be enough to get your breathing room back in, and that's critical right now. Getting back to the guy, I have him stage the hardship letter. The one thing I want you to be very careful of is you never lie, because you can get caught in a lie. And let me tell you, if you do that, it's not nice. However, just like in a court of law, you may not have to tell them the whole truth, as long as you tell them the truth. Mm-hmm. Now, in my particular thing, both the husband and wife had serious medical problems. And I do mean they were serious. This wasn't a joke. How it related to their finances was secondary. But I had them draft an incredible letter. But before that, now I want everybody to hear this that's in the real estate industry. This is important. Everybody should have a trust, a will and a trust. Absolutely. But the one thing I want you to make sure you never, ever, ever, ever do is to put your name on the trust.
Okay, stop. Here, that's the cliffhanger. We're literally down to 3 minutes.
Uh-oh.
Literally. I think I know where you're going with this. Give them something to hang on to with why they need the trust.
Okay.
Give us a cliffhanger.
Okay. So you need the trust because of the lawsuit that could entail when you're dealing in a debt thing and they don't believe you and they choose to file a lawsuit. If they file a lawsuit, they're going to do a skip tracer on your name. If your name shows up on the name of a trust, they'll go after the trust assets. But if it's in the name of your dog, in the name of some vacation you went at, or just XYZ trust, and you have a lease between your own house and the trust, so you now have all your real estate in a trust and you're leasing from them, if they come after you, hey, I'm just a tenant. I don't own anything. The trust owns it.
And so we are literally down to 2 minutes. So listen, I guess y'all can tell I'm excited about this because let me hush because I live in a community property state. Never mind. Never mind.
Well, that's what prenuptials are for.
There you go. Listen, Paul, I can already tell we're going to have a lot of fun with this. I want you all to tune in next Monday. I'm hosting Paul back, and we're going to talk about mitigating debt. We're going to get into the treasure trove of Paul's mind, those 46 years of negotiating tough debts. You're going to need to know this.
This is why it's important. 60% of all the divorces in the United States are battling over money. If you can sit down as a couple and not battle, you can save your marriage.
That's the perfect cliffhanger. Don't
I'll tell you how.
Perfect. We're going to have Paul back right here next Monday, same time, same bat station. We're going to pick up the conversation here. And I want you all to invite everyone you know. This man is a treasure. I found him on another friend's podcast. Had to have him on the show because there's so many questions now about how we create our own economy through the madness of all this. How do we negotiate it? How do we navigate it? You need someone skilled, someone who has seen troubled waters before and navigated it, someone who has a plan, a map, a strategy, and a life jacket if you need it. That would be Paul. So join me back right here on this same station. We're excited about what's happening here. Thank you all for tuning in. Again, make sure you share, and be back here. And make sure you put your comments and questions in some of the comments on the side here. And Paul and I will hang back on next week to see if we can answer some of those questions.
Send me all your difficult questions. I love them. I've answered untold thousands of questions for people. So send them in. And thank you very much. I guess we're still live. Enjoy the day and happy daylight savings.